Good afternoon, everyone. So nice to see y'all. First, before we start, happy April 1 Day. We are so excited to welcome everyone, our amazing panelists, one of our amazing sponsors, as well as stakeholders such as Ms. Corinne Corbett from Black Health Matters. This is NEFCA's second annual April 1 Awareness Day town hall. And during this time, we really want to focus on not only the significance of spreading awareness, how we all spread awareness, also myths versus facts and all the information you need to know about APOL1, which we'll learn from our amazing Dr. Gibson, who's my best friend in my head. And also, of course, we'll also talk to Corinne Corbett, who's a new best friend, who works for Black Health Matters and is the editorial director and is an amazing partner of Black Health Matters. As well as of NEPCure, and our very own traveling buddy, Barbara Harrison from Howard University, who's a genetic counselor and a leader in that field. And so during this time, we'll spend every block from discussing how important genetic counseling is in the Black space, as well as how a media outlet such as Corinne Corbett's Black Health Matters impacts health equity and why it's important to them, thus important to all of us. But before we do, I want to start first and foremost by thanking our amazing sponsors that make these type of town halls possible, starting with our platinum, Vertex, who's been a long friend of ours here at NEFCure. Dr. Stacy Johnson is here representing them, and you'll hear from her a little later about Vertex's not only contribution to health equity, but their continued commitment and how they partner with NEFCure. And also our bronze sponsors, Maze Therapeutics. They're amazing in everything they're doing. We love the Maze Labs, as well as AstraZeneca, who's also an amazing leader in this space and has also been so generous in sponsoring such events like these. So thank you, thank you, thank you to Vertex, Maze, AstraZeneca for everything you do and how you make events like this possible for all of us. We cannot thank you enough here at NEPCure. So, next, I will rely on my amazing panelists, which consists of Dr. Keisha Gibson, Corinne Corbett, and Barbara Harrison to introduce themselves. Dr. Gibson, why don't you kick us off with tell them about you and how amazing you are.
Montrez, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and an honor to always to be invited to be in this space with you. And happy April 1 Day to everybody on this call. My name is Keisha Gibson. I am a pediatric nephrologist. I am hailing to you from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I've been in North Carolina pretty much my entire life. I hold a couple of roles there. So, in addition to caring for children with kidney disease, I'm also a clinical trialist. I run the division there, and I am now vice chair for clinical affairs for our children's hospital. So, I have a lot of fun wearing a few different hats. But the hat that I'm wearing tonight, being here with all of you, joining these amazing esteemed colleagues on this panel, is what makes it all matter.
It's Dr. Gibson, aka I'm Every Woman. That's intense. Thank you so much. Next up, Corinne.
Hi, everybody, and Montrez. Well, you're my best friend in my head too. So everybody, I am honored to be here today, and I was so impressed with the Health Equity Conference at that NEPCure had. It was just one of the best conferences. I was so full. I walked away with such great, not just me, the colleagues that from Black Health Matters that went with me, we came back raving about that conference.
Oh,
And I still have a couple more articles to write about, I wrote about Dr. Crenshaw. And Dr. Gibson, I was just reading my notes from your talk this morning. I'm going to tell you, I was reading them this morning. And the article to come about your research and the discussions that you had. And so my name is Corinne Corbett. I'm the editorial director of Black Health Matters. And I've been at Black Health Matters for about a year and a half now. And I come from a background of about 30 plus years of editorial experience. I worked at Real Simple. I'm going to give you high points. Real Simple, Heart and Soul. I was the editor-in-chief of Heart and Soul, editor-in-chief of Mode, executive editor of Real Simple. But most of my background has been in beauty. And one of the things I love about working at Black Health Matters is the work I do saves lives.
Mm.
And it really does change people's lives. And I have seen it happen. Like, give people information and they call me up and say, you know what? I do have that thing you gave me.
Mm.
People I know. I say, they got to read this article, and they're like, do have this thing I gave you. So when it comes to kidney disease, it is something that is so prevalent in our community that we all know somebody that has it. And for me, I have learned so much about it that it is like every day learning more and more. It is really important. So let me just tell you, I'm just going to give you a high point about our mission is to inspire meaningful change through purpose-driven health initiatives by bridging the gap for health equity with evidence-based disease management and wellness resources. We believe that purposeful living is the foundation of health and are dedicated to empowering individuals and communities to intentionally prioritize their well-being, advocate for necessary resources, and cultivate supportive environments that lead to improved health outcomes. Black Health Matters does that. Does not, oh yeah, and that's it. So we do that in a number of ways, including our summit. And I've met, Dr. Johnson's done a number of our summits. I've seen her several times. So hi, Dr. Johnson. So I'm really, really excited to be here tonight.
Thank you, Corinne. Thank you so much. I feel like the Health Equity Conference is like Black Health Matters and NevCare's first day, and I feel like we're going on a good run right now. We're doing good.
Yes, we are.
So thank you so much, Corinne. And now, vet friend, Barbara Harris, who's an amazing genetic counselor from Howard University.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. These two ladies like have set the stage. What can I say? That's like half as amazing
You
as what
got
they
it.
just
We've
said.
been in this
Oh,
world.
you're amazing
But
too. I'm
anyway,
sure. I'm sure.
well, y'all just really laid down the foundation and just kind of that shared goal I think that we all have and commitment to our communities. And so very thankful to be here. I'm always great to be around Montrez and just his aura and just kind of everything about him, just the sunshine that radiates
Barbara.
from him. But I am a genetic counselor. I've been at Howard University for 30 years this year, and have really enjoyed my time there. And don't actually know if I would enjoy genetic counseling as much if I wasn't there, because being at Howard really allows me to focus on my community and on other underserved and under-resourced communities. And part of the reason why I got into genetics is because I wanted people to have for some to be able to kind of identify the why behind the diseases that they may have and to maybe better understand what conditions they were at risk for, be able to make some changes to be able to affect that. And so APOL1 and nephrology, kidney diseases in general just kind of fit right in there. I am relatively new to this nephrology space, but it has been eye-opening. The stories of patients who, in their 20s and 30s who were told, just drink more cranberry juice to address their
Mhm.
kidney issue, when really it was something, genetic. Um, and so to be on the precipice of having treatments that are based on that genetic causation is just, it's an awesome space to be right now. So I'm very thankful to be here. I'm excited for the conversation. I as well was, equally energized by our Health Equity Summit or conference. And I will say it was at least equal to or may have only been second to that patient summit, which was absolutely awesome. But they
Thank
were
you,
they were both
Barbara.
just really great events.
I was just joking earlier. I said, thank God Barbara doesn't block me yet because I asked her to do everything I can think of because of her expertise, as well as Dr. Gibson. And Corinne, now you're on the hook too. I'll be calling you all the time. So don't get shy on me. So I'm so excited to have you all. I'm so excited to
I'm not
welcome you
shy at
all.
all. Don't worry about it.
Thank goodness. So now we'll just go and try into our panel. So for everyone watching, we'll do like a probably 20-30 minute panel. Then we'll go into question and answer after that. Okay. So first question, Dr. Gibson, I'm going to spring it on you. You're going to get the hard one because I've known you the longest, so that's how this works. So we want to get clarity. There's been a lot of confusion. It's almost controversial to say APOL1 versus FSGS, considering. Can one happen without the other? And what are the key differences?
Yeah, no, I appreciate this question. I agree that we do sometimes conflate FSGS and APOL1 kidney disease very often. FSGS in and of itself is also a very troubling term in and of itself. So a patient has a lot of protein in their urine. They find themselves at a kidney doctor. They undergo a biopsy because we're trying to understand what's causing the protein to leak into the urine. And when we think about just sort of the overall function of the kidneys, right, we're focused on the filters of the kidney. And the way that they work, blood has to get through those filters. Well, what happens with FSGS, that stands for focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, it's a mouthful, is that
Mm-hmm.
on the biopsy, what we see is within those filters, there's some scar tissue that is built up. And where the scar has built up in those filters, blood can no longer get through those areas of the kidney. So you've lost function in those areas of the kidney. So when we think about the term focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, focal means of the biopsy sample I have, only some of the filters are involved.
Mm,
Segmental is a portion of the filter that's involved. And glomerulosclerosis is a fancy term that says scar. So some
mm,
of the filters and a portion of the filter have scar. And those are areas where you've lost function. Now, at the end of the day, what we're describing is an injury pattern. We're looking at the biopsy, and something has happened to cause scarring in the filters of the kidney, but we don't know what that thing is. It could be I've had hypertension for a long period of time that wasn't well controlled, and that's caused stress on those filters and caused a scar. It could be I have a genetic condition that's involved with how the filters are put together, and that's led to me now having FSGS. It could be I was born with one kidney, and now there are other things like I have diabetes, I have hypertension, I've gained a lot of weight really quickly, and I'm asking more work of those filters, and that's what's caused the scar in the kidney. It could be that I've contracted a virus. There are a lot of things that can cause that scar. So we're talking about an injury. And when I'm talking to families, I say, when you see a skid mark in the road, you know that something has passed through that road. You don't know if it's a truck, you don't know if it's a Toyota, you don't know what it is. FSGS is the same thing. It is describing an injury in the kidney. Now, it is clear that APOL1, that I know that we're going to talk a lot more about, can mediate some of the conditions and drive whatever disease process is there a little bit faster. And when we do the biopsy, we can see FSGS. But it's important to know that we can see folks that have what we're going to call the APOL1 high risk genotype, meaning that you have two copies of this gene, that you have that, and maybe you have lupus and you have
mm-hmm.
lupus kidney disease. So now the APOL1 there is really there as kind of a disease accelerator, and it may cause you to progress to end-stage kidney disease faster. A long time ago, we saw a lot of patients when we were learning about HIV. We saw a lot of people that developed kidney disease as a part of HIV, and overwhelmingly, the individuals that were affected were Black.
Mm,
Understand that a major component of those, the majority of those individuals that had kidney disease related to HIV had the high risk APOL1 genotype. And on the biopsy, all we saw was FSGS. So a lot of those individuals 20 years ago that were given a diagnosis of FSGS and had HIV also had this high risk APOL1 genotype. So we think about it as a disease accelerator. FSGS is the injury that we can see, but understand that you can have APOL1 kidney related diseases, and the disease is not necessarily what we would call FSGS, or what we think, how we think of other genetic forms of FSGS, or what we call idiopathic, when we don't really have an answer.
So in layman's terms, like FSGS can be seen as that it presses the gas on a disease such as FSGS and or HIV in a case, and when having that
Absolutely.
risk factor variant. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what APOL1. It is kind of, it is the gas accelerator. We're stepping on the gas that may lead you to progress faster. And again, it's important for us to think about this, and I'm sure Barbara is going to talk to us a lot more about this, that we know that this gene by itself does not explain why you have kidney disease by itself. Because there are people that have the high risk genotype and they have completely normal kidney function. So it's 1 in 5 people that we find that have 2 copies of APOL1 that progress to end stage kidney disease, not 5 in 5, not
Mm,
100%. So again, it's important for us to think about it as just an additional risk factor.
mm.
Logically, it likely plays a role in how, if you have something else, how quickly that disease may progress for you.
I love that explanation. I love that it's so easy for everyone to understand, especially those that work in this space, but also those that have had problems differentiate between the two, because that conversation always comes up. It's always a verse or and or an or. That really, really clears up a lot. So thank you for that. Um, Piggybacking off of that, Barbara, I know you've always referred to yourself as like a Ricky in this space, but I mean you've done now so much that
I
I
know. I
don't
guess I
consider that
can't
to be
say
true.
that
You can't
much
say it
longer.
anymore. That won't work.
Can't hide. Try to hide.
So genetic testing in these cases, when it comes to APOL1, especially Black Americans get genetic testing. Why is it important? One, but also, or 1A, 1B, how are you demystifying what genetic testing is in the Black space?
Mm. So, so first to say it's important because there are medical decisions, treatments, management of risk, um, prevention, things that we can do as a result of having as the result of having a genetic test done. And so despite the mistreatment that we've experienced, as a community, despite the disparities of us being involved in the past in genetics research, and just in the clinical space in general, the time has come that we need to kind of reclaim our space and
Mhm.
re be able to reap the benefits of where genetic testing has taken us and where it's going. Like literally personalized medicine, precision medicine, whatever term you want to use, a good part of that is going to be based on genetic testing and identifying the genetic cause of a disease pattern. And I really love Dr. Gibson's explanation, which, again, I'm learning more and more. I'm gonna use this like skid
Yeah.
thing. That was smart analogy. Um, but definitely thinking of something like APOL1 being a accelerator, right? It's not
Mhm.
self a cause, but it can contribute to a cause. And again, knowing that information, um, we can, hopefully soon get to treatments based on that. So we have to, um, we have to be open, right, to these genetic tests. But we can't deny that there's a reason why there is distrust and there's a reason why there is hesitation. And it's valid. It's valid. It's because, medical institutions have not been trustworthy.
Mhm.
They've done things that have really eroded and just made very obvious of, who were the priorities in our medical system. And often, it wasn't, people who look like this on this call. So that being said, um, those medical institutions, us as clinicians, we have to do that extra work to regain that trust. And I think a part of that is not leaving this community behind anymore and being on top of it. And I think the um, discovery of, things like APOL1, which we know is more often seen in individuals of, West African descent, um, is helpful in saying, this is important and we're going to prioritize this and put money toward it and identify, ways to better deal with this. Now, me saying that, I always right behind it have to say that we don't know your genes by looking at you, right? I don't know your genetic makeup by your skin color. If you think we have 20,000 genes, a very small number of those control your skin color. There's thousands and thousands more out there that, are don't have a direct correlation to that. Um, and so as we, talk about APOL1 and talk about other, genes and again, personalized medicine and those kinds of things, we really do have to keep in mind this type of testing is good for everybody, right? It's not just for a certain segment of our population,
Mm-hmm.
um, because you don't know who out there could be the one that could benefit. So, just an additional answer to that second question, it also comes from representation. Seeing us here at the table talking about it as clinicians, that is going to, help get some trust in there as well. That if I have someone who's looking at me, who's having this conversation with me about genetics, then I might feel a little bit more comfortable than someone who doesn't. So think, supporting efforts to increase the diversity of health professionals, of nephrologists and genetic counselors, and, all of us around the table is so important. And then, you know, I love that Corinne is here, because we need to get that word out. And again, from those trusted resources, um, people who have our community's interests at heart that are going to kind of vet that information before they put it out, is really important as well. So super excited to have her here.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Thank you. See, you're an expert. I'm telling you. Um, Corinne, so I love that you kind of transitioned to Corinne, because next question is for Corinne. So, Corinne, why, from a Black media space, why is it important to talk about APOL1 and kidney disease in Black media spaces? Why have you found it important?
Well, because no one knows about it, number one.
Mm,
People really do not know what APOL1 is. I mean, if you talk about it, they will say, what? What is that? I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, really, people are still kind of confused about kidney disease sometimes. Like they think that's something someone else has. Um, I They'll think, oh, that's something somebody like my aunt has that. That doesn't have
mhm,
anything to do with me. That doesn't have, unless, you know, um, we, unless it, we were at a summit in Charlotte. I'll give you an example. We were at a summit in Charlotte in November. And until somebody correlated it with hypertension, did anybody pay attention?
mhm,
That's when people took out their notebooks and started writing things down. Like, oh, this does relate to me. And before that, people were like, oh, yeah, that's something somebody, oh, my grandmother, oh, my aunt, oh, that's not something that relates to me. But
mhm.
when the woman said, oh, I had hypertension, that was on the panel, they said, oh, that might relate to me. So when we start talking about APOL1 as something that's in the genes, that it is something that we may all possibly have, then we need to start to pay attention that it's in our genes and it goes back to Africa.
Mhm.
We can't say Tuskegee. Like it because a lot of times when we start saying genetic testing, oh, I don't want to do that because Tuskegee, we start to
Yeah.
use that as an excuse. But we start to talk about it as if for me, as we talk about it, this is something that is inherent. It's in our genes. It goes back hundreds of years. This is something that we need to talk about. Let's be clear. This is something that's been in our genes for years. Let's talk about it from that standpoint of not only Black Americans, Caribbean Americans, the people that have been dropped off in South America, people that, all across the diaspora. We may all have been impacted by APOL1, right? And that that is why there's a prevalence of kidney disease in our
Mhm.
community. There's a causality. It's not the man trying to get us. Now this makes a little bit more sense,
Yeah.
because I think that, we all, it's yes, there are some diet, there are some things that have happened. There are some kind of, there are some things that we're doing in our lives, right? Yes, we have some habits that we may need to break. But
Mhm.
it's not just the habits that we have have created, or and there's social, um, some causes, some things, those societal causes that we have some factors there as well. Yeah, there are all these all add up. But then there are also some genetic factors too. So let's look at all of them. So we need to make sure that we inform them about those.
Mhm.
And not just once a year on APOL1 Day, but consistently.
Amen.
So one of the things that, kind of like I have been intentional about is just informing about kidney disease year round.
That's amazing.
Because it, I, I, because if we don't tell them all the time, it's not like hit them over the head, but like in little subtle ways. Subtle ways. If we can just kind of slip it in there, like um, I'm sure you're aware that we had Daniel Holmes go
Yeah.
to the Maker conference, like
Yeah.
because if we could get Black men to be aware of how kidney disease is aware, I mean, it impacts them. That's a big win. Like, because Black men don't go to the doctor. Like, how about you go to the doctor do one thing, go to the doctor, get your protein checked.
So
That's a
true.
one step. Like things like that, like little things. Like if we can start making these making impact like that. So anywhere I can get it in, I'm going to get it in. Like to share the information subtly or overtly. So we do it at our summits because it's easy to make we have sessions on those, and then we have it in our newsletters. But it is making people aware. But if we can educate people, and then it's each one teach one. So, and when we have those opportunities to educate on those super weekends where it's the Divine Nine or the
Mhm.
Links, or where they're like, you have people who are like trumpets or bugles, where they're educating bigger audiences. We got to take advantage of those as well. So it is opportunities to say, did you know? Because I don't think you do.
Thank you, Corinne.
And
And
it's the
we
audience.
so,
Yeah.
we so agree with you, especially when it comes to Black men, even in doing, wow, wait, our chat is already popping, which is why I love April 1 Awareness Day. I mean, it is most interactive all the time. I mean, it was the same way last year. It was like bam, bam, bam. I know we said we do question answer after this, but I may go ahead and start pull some of them now. But in doing the screening event at E9, I always say that, which big shout out to E9 and Reverend Miles, amazing board member and also amazing leader in this space and what he's done. He's created something that I swear I find unparalleled and unrivaled no matter where I've been. What a great screening system. I want to take all of you all. I want to take my mom. I want to take everybody I know. It is amazing. It is bar none. He runs almost a hospital inside of this church that is unparalleled by every measure. But one thing I noticed in the screening events, it's probably my third or fourth one with him. The women, Black women were very much so like to come in and be like, okay, da, da, da. The Black men, I had to like yell, like, get in this room, come over here. It was always somebody my father's age or my grandfather's age. And so I will say, there is so much promise. And Dr. Horowitz, who I thought was amazing during the conference, said that it's also the earnest of this issue sometimes comes from the doctor's mistrust as well. It's not always the patient that mistrusts the doctor. Sometimes the doctors mistrust the patients when they don't look the same, and they assign them biases, assuming they're not going to be compliant, when in all actuality, what they found is in so many studies that they were willing to, and so many Black Americans were willing to take tests, were so willing to comply with diets as well as the medication. And so I think we have to make sure we highlight the earnest falls on both, sometimes not always on us, but also on those who treat us, who have biases surrounding us because of past experiences. So I think that's important to highlight. But let's go ahead and start with one. Let me start with one question. And that's from Peggy Austin. Peggy said early on, aren't the majority of us who are African Americans of West African descent? And should parents be more proactive with their kids, even if there are no symptoms?
I'm
Gibson, you
happy
want
to
to take
jump
that?
in there.
Go ahead, Gibson.
No, I'm so happy to I'm happy to jump on that. And as a pediatric nephrologist, I will tell you that this is something that I'm very passionate about, is making sure that we are paying attention to our young people. So we, talked about the fact that our men are not terribly proactive of going to the doctor unless there's something terribly wrong. Um, the population that's probably even more at risk for this type of behavior are our young people. They are invincible. They're, thinking about their long-term health is very different. Kidney disease, that's not something that somebody my age has to think about. That's, Aunt Bertha, who's, 75 years old
Mm-hmm.
and has diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what we do know about APOL1 related kidney disease is that the disease starts early in life. And so it's in the teenagers that I'm seeing, age 15, 16, 17, the ones that have disease that's going to truly be progressive are already starting to show symptoms of protein spillage in their urine. We do kidney biopsies. We can already see these findings of these like FSGS-like findings, so scars in the kidney. And it's important to know that once we have that scar, we can't reverse it. So we've got to prevent it.
Mhm.
And so as we now we're entering this era where there's a lot of excitement in our world because we do have some drugs that are in clinical trials. So I'm very optimistic that we will soon have treatment specifically for people that have APOL1 related diseases. But until then, we have to take control of what we can control. And so if we know that you're at risk, so you have been screened and we find you early, we can make sure that your blood pressure is well controlled. We do have medications like ACE inhibitors and another class of medication called ARBs or angiotensin receptor blockers that we know can slow the progression of kidney disease. Many of you have probably seen the little turtles in the commercial on TV. I'm not a paid sponsor, so don't worry. But we have another class of medication called SGLT2 inhibitors.
Sure.
So you've seen the Jardiance like commercials and others that other brands for those drugs. We know they can absolutely slow the progression of kidney disease. So having that early knowledge is critically important because all of these things matter and can definitely make the difference between going into kidney failure within 3 to 5 years versus delaying for 20 years or more and giving us time to be able to finish developing these drugs that might stop it altogether.
Mm-hmm.
But kidney disease is very silent. Unless you are going to your doctor and you're getting screened, somebody's looking at your urine, somebody's checking your blood pressure, you're getting blood work so that they're drawing something called creatinine and hopefully also cystatin C to tell you what your GFR is. Your GFR is how we think about kidney function. You want to know what those numbers are, and you have to ask because by the time you start seeing symptoms of swelling or feeling really fatigued and tired, your kidney disease is way, 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 way down the line and likely at a point that we're not going to be able to make interventions to reverse what's happening. So going for your annual screens and really talking to our young people. They don't go to the doctor unless they go to the club and they hurt their foot and they end up in the emergency room. That's not how I want to find you. I want to find you because you're going every year to get your blood pressure checked and get your urine checked, so that we can find you early and make those early interventions.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. Thank you so much. I think I'm just going to probably throw my questions out. Um,
I just want
Ready?
to take a quick stab at the
Go
first part
ahead.
of the
Go ahead.
question, which is definitely true. The majority of us that identify as Black and African American here do have our roots in West Africa. Um, and that being said, and into the earlier point, so maybe that's easier for us that may look like we're Black, right? But there are others, because of how race plays out in this country, who identify as white, who have significant African heritage, right? If it's a survival. You had to pass for white if that was an option,
Mm-hmm.
just to survive in this society. So it is again important not to fall into that trap of if you're Black, then you're at risk. That that it's exclusively if you're, identify as Black that you're at risk for APOL1, because it's just simply not the case.
That's a
Um,
good point,
and
Barbara. I heard somebody mention one day that people focus a lot on where the boat dropped you off is where the boat
yes,
picked us up. That
Mm.
yeah,
matters.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And genetics had, eh, back to the first question you asked me, which this kind of brought it to my mind. I mean, genetics has been used against us for many, centuries, literally.
Very true.
Anything that, could be used to be divisive, to identify a trait as not being desirable, that's eugenics. Literally, eugenics is where the science of genetics came from, to be frank. And so that's why one of the reasons we have to work so hard to kind of undo that damage of the past and try to make it a better narrative now. Because it was, and then Dr. Gibson can tell you about the GFR and the use of race in that in the past. And there's other medical models and risk factor or, risk models and things like that that use race as if it was biological, and it just really is not. So
Thank you, Barbara.
we got to
Thank
undo
you.
that.
Also, for everyone who is, I mean, it is moving up. I feel like I'm on New Year's Rockin' Eve. It is moving. So since it is moving so much, I'm going to put my email in the chat as well. So if you have any questions that I don't get to, please email me. I will get it to these ladies. They are so responsive to me. Thank God. So I will get them to them and make sure your questions are answered very promptly. So I do have one from Elsa. My daughter was diagnosed when she was 8 years old with FSGS. Do you think it makes sense for young children to have urine tests for protein? Dr. Gibson.
Oh, this is such a difficult question. There are many people like myself that are in this space, and we think about FSGS, we think about diseases that impact the filters of the kidney, APOL1, and we would love if all of our children were getting routine urinalyses. And, just generally you would think, okay, this is a very simple thing, have a child pee in a cup. The problem is the burden that it places on general pediatricians and the fact that we often get false positives that they're chasing. So how the urine protein is being measured, how it's interpreted is important. And then unfortunately, when I first started training as a pediatrician, we won't talk about how many decades ago that was now. It
A few
was
nights ago.
a few nights ago. At the age of 5, every child got a routine screening urinalyses. And then there were a lot of people that performed sort of cost effectiveness analyses and realized that there was a lot of time and money that that was going into this for a very low yield of finding disease that was actionable. And so unfortunately, that has kind of gone away. This is why it's so important for us to talk about APOL1 as kind of a family thing. And if you're a family that has been identified that has APOL1, like my family, my dad was a baby of 17 children, and I have over 15 people in my family that have developed end-stage kidney disease. So I tell people I'm not an accidental
Mm,
nephrologist. Has
mm,
Dr. Gibson been tested? Absolutely, she has. She carries a G1 allele. Both of my kids have a
mhm.
G1 allele. So for me, because it was in my family, I felt like it was really important for me to understand what the risks were for my children. So I am hopeful that as we move forward, and especially once we know that we have treatments available for this, that the way that we think about how we evaluate children may change. It may evolve over time. Many of you that have had children in the last 20 or 25 years in North Carolina know that every child gets a newborn screen, and we screen for well over 20 different diseases. It would be nice. I would love in my perfect world that APOL1 is included on that newborn screen like sickle cell trait is. Um,
Yes.
we're not quite there yet, but I'm really hopeful that that's going to be the direction that we move so that we know very early on who's at risk so that we can sort of modify our behavior and how we are following those children. If I have somebody identified at birth, high risk APOL1 genotype, guess what? As a part of their routine and annual visit, they're getting a urinalysis in addition to the blood pressure check.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. I have a message from Tracy. Also, if y'all have any specified questions, anyone has specific questions about their situation, please feel free to email those to me and I'll make sure it gets to the right people. So if you have any questions about your situation that may be specified, I can for sure get you the answers. Dan Holmes in the chat. There's so many people that I know in the chat who can vouch that I respond pretty quickly. So I'll get you connected to whoever you need to be connected to if you just reach out and email me. But Tracy says, I was one of those children that overheard my pediatrician tell my parents that I had protein spilling in my urine as early as first grade back in 1975. Nothing done about it. No recommendations, no follow-up, ever. Began bigger symptoms in college that minimized my continued performance in sports. Had twins in 2000, had major complications, numbers tanked, ran around to various doctors, good doctors in parentheses, but ended up chasing my tail. Kidney failure close to COVID, dialysis in 2019 for 1 year, kidney transplant in 2020 during COVID, genetic test at 50. I was on it, but misled. I think you said misled time and time again. I advocate every chance I get. My surgeon was Black and he helped to save my life, along with my amazing donor who was a family friend. My genetic test revealed APOL1. Amazing. Thank you so much, Tracy. That's a testimony to why this is not why this day is important, but why things like genetic testing are important and why spreading awareness is important. Because someone could be in your same shoes right now, Tracy, we can be preventing having a similar experience. So thank you for sharing that. That needs to be sang from the rooftops. Thank you, Tracy. Also, really quickly, Corinne. I think sometimes with spreading information, we become sometimes it puts us in a difficult place. And one thing, as far as programming comes with NFJ, that's personal to me, is not fear mongering or causing any sense of trauma bonding when it comes to that. So it's a very tight rope to walk. So I admire you greatly. How do you balance raising awareness without creating fear or stigma around diseases and the
Well, I
Black
think
community?
because I think that I because you tell human stories.
Mm,
I think I think that you find a way to tell you between the medical advice and a patient's story. You do both. When you tell human stories, you can take the fear out of it because if somebody walks the path for you, they may tell some things that are scary, but they'll tell you what happened to them.
mm-hmm.
And that helps.
I think
And
so much
sometimes you need to be a
testimony.
little afraid if that's going to get you to the doctor.
Yes, yes.
If that's
That's
going to get you to the
necessary.
doctor, you need to be a little afraid because you got to get up and go.
I agree. I agree. Sometimes it's necessary. Um, Also, Althea, you asked the question, how can we ask about genetic testing? Do we self-refer ourselves to a nephrologist? One thing you can do, Althea, there's two very well-known genetic testing companies such as Arcana as well as Natera. And they have you have the ability to get a free test sent to your home, and then you can take that into your physician's office. It comes with also a sample letter as well. I will put that in the chat. We have that on nephcare.org. And if insurance doesn't cover it, that's where I come in. I will fight for you and I will push to get it covered. Many cases it does cover. And they also have financial assistance programs, both companies. So that's a very easy way to do that as far as requesting genetic testing. You can go to Natera, Natera, which I'll put this on the chat, as well as Arcana, and you can ask about genetic testing. Did y'all want to add something to that? Either one of you, Dr. Gibson, Barbara Harrison?
I'd let you go first, Barbara.
I just wanted to highlight, I think it was a great question by KK in the chat. I think it's a common question. It's
Sure.
about insurance. So I'll go ahead and give it to Dr. Gibson first. It was something specifically for this.
Well, I was just, with the self-referral to nephrology, sometimes I'll be very honest, that may be hard to get directly into. You want to start, if you have a general physician, they absolutely can start early screening with looking at your urine to see if there's any protein in your urine. I think if you have a family history of early onset kidney disease, those are things that would help get a referral to nephrology. But what Montrez just offered in terms of direct access to getting testing, if you just want to get this question answered for your family, I think that that's a very viable path.
Yes, and to be very clear, Arcana does APOL1 testing specifically, whereas Natera does over, I think, 385 genes. So if you follow that link, which right quick, I think this is so important, y'all. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick, so that you all can see what I'm looking at, everyone, in the audience. This is on navcure.org. And I just shared this link. Right here is a link to both, of those. And so you can go to Natera as well as Arcana and you can request that. And usually it is no cost, but if there is a cost, please reach out to me and I'll help you navigate that if there's a problem. And that's on nefcure.org under genetic testing.
And I also want to highlight in the chat, I think, Tanya, thank you for bringing that up to not forget that clinical trials would be another really good avenue to be able to get connected to these resources. And I'm sure there's information for clinical trials on the NephCure website for you to look into.
We're gonna get to that. Our amazing Kelsey Clemens is our manager of physician engagement. So she's gonna give us a slight walkthrough of our clinical trial, which is our clinical trial tool, which is still being evolved. So just forewarning, we're still evolving. By end of May, we should be up and running with the new beautiful interface clinical trial tool. So we'll get to Kelsey in a little bit. Before we do, though, I did get a question. Someone just asked me, do people ever say APOL1 when they mean AMKD? It's important to clarify the APOL1 is a genetic variant and AMKD is a disease. Correct, Dr. Gibson?
Repeat that last one. I was reading the chat. This is what happens when you multitask in
You do
front
it
of
too
an
much.
audience.
I know who you're telling. I'm a swivel head right now. So people sometimes say APOL1 when they mean AMKD. It may be important to clarify that APOL1 is a genetic variant, AMKD is a disease.
Yes, no, that's a very important distinction. So once we, so APOL1 just really identifies your risk. Are you at risk for disease with carrying? So, and you can be a carrier if you only have one copy of this allele. At this point, we don't have data suggesting that really causes disease to progress quicker. If you have two copies of the gene, then you are what we consider at high risk.
Mhm.
So that's all that means is that you're at risk. It does not mean that you're definitely going to have kidney disease. Again, it's 20% of individuals with this high risk genotype that progress or that develop kidney disease. AMKD means that we now have evidence of kidney disease. It could be FSGS. It could be that I have a different disease process and this APOL1 genotype now is going to cause it to move faster. But those are very important distinctions to make.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And
Go, Barbara.
and to piggyback on that, because I think that brings up some important kind of factors you need to keep in mind. So that APOL1 is the name of the gene, right? And everybody has this gene. It's not that some people have it and some people don't. Everybody has the APOL1 gene. You actually have two of them, right? Because you've gotten one from the egg and one from the sperm, right? So you have two copies of that. Everyone has two copies of that APOL1 gene. The question is, what version of that gene do you have? And like these versions, I kind of one analogous situations, if you think of something like eye color, there's different versions of eye color. There's blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes, hazel eyes, etc. Right? So there's different versions of the group of genes that lead to your eye color, but it's kind of simplistically, let's just say kind of that eye color gene. So similarly with this APOL1, there is a version of the gene that most people have. And then there are these variants or different types or variations of that gene that, if you have them, then can increase your risk. And so we name those variations G1 and G2. The regular kind of variation of that gene we call V0, right? So any one person is going to can have will have a combination of at least those three different variations. So one person may receive a G0 from their mom and a G0 from their dad, and they will call them G0, G0. They don't have this accelerator for kidney disease. Doesn't mean they won't get kidney disease. It just means they don't have this accelerator, right? A person may inherit a G0 from one parent, then a G1 or a G2 from the other parent. So they just have one copy, and we call that person a carrier. Again, as Dr. Gibson has said, we don't have enough evidence to show that just having that one variant, that G1 or G2, is enough to be a facilitator.
Mhm.
And so it's those individuals that have inherited a G1 or a G2 from both parents, that's those folks that have this 20% risk to have this accelerated kidney disease. So that combination can look like G1, G1. That combination can look like G2, G2. That combination can look like G1, G2, right? Just depends what you got from your mom and dad. But it's when you have those two risk variants that we then get into this conversation of a risk for kidney disease. Now, I wanted to just highlight this cat from KK. So she says, my nephrologist suggested 2 years ago that I do genetic testing for the APOL1 gene because both of my parents died due to kidney failure. I have the gene and I'm trying to learn as much as I can about it. I'm 65 on dialysis. I've been on dialysis 2 years, taking BP meds since my mid-20s. My daughter is 26 and taking BP meds already. I mean, that's like the red flag in my mind. Um, if she does genetic testing, how will that affect her insurance? And so I just wanted to get to this question about insurance. So the short story is that in 2008, bill was signed called the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, or GINA. And GINA basically provides protection in employment and in health insurance against discrimination based on genetic susceptibility information. So if you do a test like APOL1, say you find out you have these two variants, let's say you're G1, G1, you're 20 years old, so there's this risk that you're going to develop kidney disease. Your health insurance can't say, oh, you're at an increase for kidney disease, so you're going to possibly cost me more. I'm going to raise your premium. That's illegal. Your employer can't say, you're at an increased risk for kidney disease. You may not be able to work for me very long, so I'm not going to promote you to a certain, thing. That's illegal. Um, Now, if you develop kidney disease, GINA's off the table, but you should have other protections then from things like the Americans with Disabilities Act and so forth that, could provide some protection. But importantly, GINA does not cover life insurance or disability insurance.
Right.
And so it is possible that one of those entities could use your genetic testing result to say, oh, you're at an increased risk for kidney disease. You may not live very long. I'm going to, give you these high rates for your life insurance. Or you're more likely to need this disability insurance. So I'm going to give you higher rates. That is legal. And so what some people, part of the genetic counseling conversation is around, maybe today isn't the best time for you to have this genetic test. If you're asymptomatic, you don't have any symptoms, you don't have any reason to think that this is happening at this point. So it's not for an immediate medical kind of benefit. It's not like you're spilling protein, something like that. Like or this individual here, they're 26, they probably need to consider having genetic testing because they're already having symptoms. The health insurance has access to that. Your life insurance is going to have access to that. But if you're really like completely asymptomatic and thinking about this testing, that is a thought. Some people will go and get that life insurance policy first and then come back and do the genetic testing. But that's all, part of a conversation, but I just wanted to address that since it was
Thank you,
clear.
Barbara. And I agree with your outlook on it as well as the facts. I mean, Dr. Crenshaw, which I connect people with that conversation as well. I may have them record something. That way we can share that. I've changed my name on the screen to my email address. So if you have any other questions, comments, or anything, please email me. I cannot encourage you enough. I will get back to you. We will get your questions answered, especially those scenario-based questions or individualistic questions. I can ensure to you that I can link you to a healthcare specialist either in your area or to someone that can help you. So please don't be shy about reaching out. You can just shoot me, hi, this is my question, and I'll respond to you, okay? So I wanted to transition to Dr. Stacy Johnson from Vertex Pharmaceuticals, one of our amazing, amazing sponsors, and let her give a word from Vertex.
Thank you so much, Montrez. It was great. It's great to be here. I'm really honored, and it's a privilege to hear the stories and to be on this here at this panel and share with you today on APOL1 Day and AMKD Awareness Day. Thank you to NEFCure for organizing tonight's event and for giving us at Vertex the opportunity to support and to participate. Tonight, I also want to thank the people who have shared their stories and have that it's very meaningful. I think it's a powerful tool to share that experience so that we can all learn from you and spread the word about APOL1 and the importance of understanding the causes of kidney disease. Tonight, I just want to leave you with three messages. First, in general, this is actually a really exciting time for nephrology. You heard about the information about APOL1. I think it's when you think about the fact that this gene was really described in 2010, so it's actually been a relatively short time that we have moved from the identifying the gene to all the knowledge that we have now. The field is still evolving, but we are learning more every day. Part of today's awareness campaign, of course, is to help people understand and help us all understand our own family history. Because of APOL1 is AMKD and APOL1 mediated kidney disease is genetic. You know that if knowing your risk of developing kidney disease is really important. Diagnosing early, as we heard Dr. Gibson say, is also important because a lot of times people don't feel sick until their kidney disease is advanced. And at that point, it may be too late to try to reverse course. And so it's really important to detect the disease early. Keep up with doctor's visits and talk to your primary doctors about if you think that you're at risk for kidney disease. Maybe you have a strong family history of kidney disease, then having that conversation with your healthcare provider about whether screening for kidney disease is right for you is important when you get to those visits. If you've already been diagnosed with kidney disease and think that you may have a risk for that it might be AMKD, talk to your doctor about whether genetic testing is appropriate. We've heard a lot of conversation today about genetic testing, but it is, of course, that individual decision, but really have a conversation with your provider. It would be great if you can have access to a genetic counselor. I know, Barbara, there are a few of you in the space, but certainly if you can get referred to a genetics counselor, that's also going to be valuable information that you learn there. The second thing I want to just share with people is a few words about Vertex. Some of you may know Vertex from our work in sickle cell disease and cystic fibrosis. Some of you may never have heard of Vertex, but whether you know a lot about Vertex or a little bit, I just want to share that our mission is we invest in scientific research. Our goal is to create transformative medicines for serious diseases, and that includes kidney disease and APOL1 mediated kidney disease, like what we're talking about tonight. We have an investigational drug in phase 3 clinical trial looking to test the treatment to see if it's effective in the treatment of APOL1 mediated kidney disease. And we're not the only company that's done that, but certainly that idea about, trying to find effective therapies is one of the key goals at Vertex. I'm a nephrologist, and I treated adult patients, but I saw firsthand the impact that chronic kidney disease can have on patients, their loved ones and families, and it can have a tremendous burden. It can be a tremendous burden managing kidney disease. And hearing patients talk about having their hopes and sort of their hope that for a time when they could be free of kidney disease, I think is something that has stuck with me, and one of the things that fuels me, but also fuels the team at Vertex to go in every day to do our best to try to bring treatments for people with this condition. And then the last thing I want to say is thank you so much to NEFCure. You all are doing extraordinary work, and none of this would have been possible without you. So we appreciate what you're doing, because I firmly agree we need to get the word out. We need to increase awareness, because that's the only way that people can act and hopefully make change. So thank you so much.
As always, thank you all at Vertex. We couldn't thank you all enough. You've been a leader and a big help to us and a big support to us. We can't appreciate you enough. Also, thank you, Dr. Johnson and Barbara, for continuing to answer those questions in the chat. Also, please reach out to me if you have any other questions to anyone. Next up, I'm gonna give the reins to Miss Kelsey Clemens. She's our manager of physician engagement. Kelsey's I would say you were newer enough here, but I feel like you've always been here because she's incredible what she does. She's the best, in my opinion, in what she does. And we are so excited to have her and have her here in the NetCare family. So Kelsey's just going to do an overview of our current clinical trial tool. I want to emphasize current because the best is yet to come. End of May, we'll have a far better revised one. Currently, it's not quite what we wanted, but it's true form the NetCare. We're going to get it where it needs to be. So Kelsey, you can share your screen if you would like.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, perfect. So you should be seeing our general NephCure webpage right now. So you can get to this just by going to nephcure.org. So in order to get to the clinical trial webpage, we're going to go up to the top here where it says Managing RKD, and then go down to clinical trials. So this will bring you to our main clinical trial webpage. It lists out all of the clinical trials that we currently have on our website. On the left side here, you'll see the filters section. So you're able to filter this by your zip code, the status of the trial, the type of trial, and also your diagnosis. Right now, we only have one APOL1 clinical trial currently on our website, but we'll have 2 more coming up very soon. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a filter for FSGS for this amplitude study. That is the way that we are able to get it to pop up. It will soon be able to pop up if you use the APOL1 filter. And if you click on the amplitude study, this just shows you one of the clinical trial sites. So if you did not use your zip code to filter the closest site locations to you, you can scroll down about halfway down the page and then choose one of the many locations here. We'll just go ahead and stick with Wilmington, North Carolina for right now. At the top here, you'll see that you have access to the study coordinator's name, the site location address, along with the sponsor, study drug, and then estimated enrollment date, as well as the estimated end date. And in the middle here, it just gives you a brief description about the clinical trial, and then this wonderful video from Vertex, a little bit more about the clinical trials. Halfway down the screen here, you'll see a little section that just lists out the criteria for this specific clinical trial, as well as a little bit more information about the drug being used. And then all the way down to the bottom, we have this really neat tool where you can see exactly where that clinical trial location is located on a map, which is very helpful to navigate. So let's say I am interested and want to go ahead and submit an inquiry for this trial. I'm going to go all the way to the top and hit this I'm interested button. This is going to bring you to this contact this study page. So once you fill out your information and you hit submit below, this will send your contact information directly over to the study coordinator. The study coordinator will then contact you directly just to go over a couple more screening questions to make sure that you're a good fit for this specific clinical trial. And you'll also receive an email from NephCure. So if you do not hear back from the study coordinator within 2 weeks, just reply to that email and we will be more than happy to get you in contact with them directly. Like Montrez said, this will be all brand new at the end of May, so it'll be a little bit easier for you to navigate. But this is just a little step-by-step for now. Thank you, Montrez.
Amazing, Kelsey. Great job as always. So I did plan to do a quick recap of our health equity conference. From that, we had about over 150 stakeholders, that being faith leaders, genetic counselors like our own Barry Barbara Harrison, leading physicians like Keisha Gibson, as well as an amazing stakeholders like Miss Corinne Corbett, who really lead the way in her medium as well. And in that time, we had the theme of From Awareness to Action, where we didn't simply educate people about APOL1 or FSGS or we instead leaned into giving them actionable tools that they could take away and all these stakeholders could use in their own communities to not only spread awareness, but enact change and make impact. So I hope this plays, but it's going to be really, really quick. And this is just today's, our amazing marketing team, which is led by Kylie, our amazing marketing director. They, along with a vendor, put together an amazing video that better captures it as opposed to me just talking about it. Hope you all can hear this.
Kidney disease disproportionately affects the African American population right now. I was diagnosed with FSGS at the age of 17. There are a lot of stories that haven't been heard. There are a lot of statistics that people are unaware of. I still remember myself back when I was that 17-year-old kid, first time hearing about FSGS, not knowing what it was, believing, what did I do wrong? How could I do this to myself? I let my family down. I let my friends down. But instead, I decided I wanted to share what was going on.
Kidney disease isn't silent anymore. It's time to pull the rug up so that people understand that this is real and it's out here and it's impacting our families every single day.
I'm going to make sense of this. The only way I'm going to understand this is to pursue an education.
Now more than ever, we're seeing a rise in chronic kidney disease, and not only chronic kidney disease, but in rare kidney disease cases. We are seeing a rise in the mortality and morbidity.
People are hurting, people are dying, people are sick. We still have to think about social determinants. We still have to think about those things.
More than 24% of Medicare spending is spent on patients with kidney disease. 24% of Medicare.
As we see more of a heightened prevalence of chronic kidney disease and the cost gets higher and higher and higher, policymakers and lawmakers are going to have to say, what can we do?
There are too many kidney warriors around the world battling and waiting for a cure, and we will not stop until a cure is found.
What we're doing for equity has always been an uphill climb, but we're not going to get stuck. You're needed now more than ever.
Every reverend, every pharmaceutical company, every patient, every family. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
Right? I'm sorry, y'all. That was from our health equity conference this year. And sorry.
Disproportionately.
And it was an amazing, impactful experience that really, really, really leaned into taking and making change within the Black community when it comes to not only health equity, but in particular health equity when it comes to kidney disease. NephCare is more committed than ever. Health equity isn't an initiative for us. It runs through our veins. It's one of the very, very, very strands of the thread that makes NephCare. It's in everything we do. And so I hope that you all can partner with us, reach out to me. And I want to first, before we leave, thank Corinne Corbett from Black Health Matters, editorial director, Dr. Keisha Gibson, every woman there's ever been, Barbara Harrison, my faithful one, who I call on for everything, who's a major counselor from the prestigious and amazing Howard University, and our very own Kelsey Clemens, who we're so happy to have at NephCare, manager of physician engagement, and Dr. Stacey Johnson from one of our trusted and valuable sponsors, Vertex. We are so happy to have you all, and please reach out. Thank you all as panelists, and thank you all that have attended this. Thank you much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.